This section we are discussing about infinity. The question is, when do you get infinity or minus, that is negative infinity, as output? The category of this question is JavaScript language, and there will be two relative questions related to this topic. Infinity is a special integer value which is greater than any value, or in other words, it is the highest possible value available in JavaScript. In fact, there are two possibilities for infinity. One is the positive infinity and the second is negative infinity. Why have I written this positive underscore infinity? Because they are the constants available. Let's practically try how does it work. I'll say console.log. There is a class called number in JavaScript, and that has this constant value which is a kind of property. I'll say positive infinity here, and another console log where I'm going to write negative infinity. Let's run this code. I'll say node infinity.js. As you see the output, only infinity is positive infinity and minus, that is negative infinity, is the one which is displayed by this constant. We generated these with the help of constant. But when do we receive in the program? In JavaScript, the numbers are stored in 64-bit format. It means any value which cannot fit in the 64-bit format will return infinity. That means it cannot hold the value. The value is larger than 64-bit. At that time, you get infinity. Let's practically try this. Before we move to bigger values, I would just like to show you one feature of JavaScript. For example, I'll say console log. I just want to have value 9000. Instead of adding lot of zeros, what you can do is you can say small e, which actually multiplies this number, the one which I am giving after e, by 1 and 4 zeros. So this is something like, this is actually 1, that is e, and you have 4 zeros, right? So here what will happen in this case? It will be 9 into 1 plus these zeros will be added, that is 9 into 10,000. So for this you should get 90,000. Let's try this. Right? So when you say e and 4, that means you want to add 4 zeros after 9. Similarly, I can have a minus value also because I want to generate negative infinity as well. So now we will have two values here, plus 90,000 and minus 90,000. Imagine that I want to add 400 zeros. And here also I add 400 zeros. Now if I run, what happens? Now you get that value infinity or negative infinity because the value is so huge that it cannot fit in 64-bit format also. That's why the output shows positive or negative infinity. We also have another way to simulate this situation. We can use number dot max underscore value. That's the constant which returns the maximum available value. Let's try the same thing here. I'll say console.log the number class dot max value. Let's also try the same thing with a negative value as well. But what I want is, I just want that I want to multiply this by 2. Even this one. Now you cannot have a value which is above max value, and that too you are multiplying it by 2. Same is the case with the negative value. So this will also generate infinity and negative infinity. Let's save this and I will run the code. So now we have these two values generating infinity and these two values generating negative infinity. All these codes are generating the infinity, but this isn't the purpose. Ideally, when you expect that in some calculation you might get some huge value and you want to put a validation, then it is useful. For example, you can have an if condition like this, where I have if there is a number which is a variable that I compare that is it negative infinity or not, or let's say positive infinity or not. If so, then you return the respective message. Otherwise, you may have some calculation which you do and you return the value. So you actually check whether the value is in the fixed format which JavaScript is expecting or not. To check the finite or infinite value, there is also isFinite method in JavaScript, but we are checking it in next question, where we also discuss one more numeric error situation called nan, or also called as not a number. At the moment, let's discuss relative questions of this topic. The first question: how will you put a validation for positive or negative infinity? As we discussed, we can show number dot positive or negative infinity. We put if condition and we work with it. The second question is, what will be the output of this code? Now this is a situation where it shows divide by zero error in most of the programming languages. But here if I try to do that, it's going to return infinity only. Let's check that practically. I'll say simply console.log 1 divided by 0. I'll save this and running the code again. And you see that we get the infinity. So this is also a division by zero error situation where we get infinity in JavaScript.